We must go ham on behalf of the American people.
Nina Turner knows how to work a crowd. She's a former Cleveland City Council member and Ohio State Senator, and on the 2020 presidential campaign trail, Turner stumped for Senator Bernie Sanders, energizing his supporters before he spoke. Now, Turner is continuing the causes of racial justice, Medicare for all, canceling student debt, and raising the minimum wage as she runs for U.S. Congress in Ohio. If she wins the special election for the seat, Turner will head to Washington as a champion of progressive causes. What were your biggest lessons from the Bernie campaign trail?
Conscious-minded people can shift things in politics. And the progressives have done that. I mean, we see more progressives than ever being elected across the country and across levels of government. And even in cases where progressives were running and they did not necessarily win the seat, we changed how politicians, especially on the Democratic side, had to talk about issues. Medicare for all would not still be being debated if it was not for that progressive movement. Canceling student debt, legalizing marijuana, you name it. It is because of the progressive movement that we're having real, robust debate about the type of country we want to be, about the type of country that we should be. So I want to encourage progressives or freedom fighters to keep on pushing. We are changing things.
How did you come up with the phrase, hello somebody?
Hello somebody was born. So unfortunately on the campaign, we got you talk about a scare, but when I got that call, the senator had a heart attack and we were not sure whether or not we were going to be able to keep on going. But Senator Sanders is something else, as we can see. So our first rally back was in Queens, New York. I had the distinct pleasure, as usual, to get out there and do what I do best, which is the people raise. I think it was almost 30,000 people out there. It was just a sight to behold. And as I was vibing with the crowd, I am a daughter of the Black church, and we have what is called the call and response. When the preacher says something, you got to talk back. You don't just sit there. That concept is also within jazz. And I just felt, just seeing the sea of faces out there. And I wanted them to know, like, I see you. We're together. So since I didn't know everybody's name, I said, hello, somebody. Hello, somebody. Just came out of nowhere. Just, I think, from my soul into my heart, and then into my head and out my mouth. And I found myself saying, hello, somebody, because everybody's somebody. I'm looking out there, this sea of beautiful, diverse faces, saying, hello, somebody.
Will Democrats ever be as united in left-wing stances as Republicans are in right-wing ones?
The nation is there. I mean, when we look at the things that people really care about now, again, especially because of the pandemic, it is healthcare. It is increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It is canceling student debt. When I started this journey with Senator Sanders in the latter part of 2015, people thought they're crazy. Why are they talking about this stuff? This doesn't make sense. And you fast forward to 2021, and those subjects, those issues are what animate people's lives every single day. So just as the Republicans are determined to wreak havoc, especially those on the federal level, the Democratic Party, because we asked the American people to give us the presidency, check. Give us the Senate by way of Georgia, check. Help us keep the majority in the House of Representatives, check. So we got check, check, and check. Now, we must go ham on behalf of the American people. That's it. Medicare for all, increasing the minimum wage, canceling student debt.
Have you always been able to express your authentic self in politics?
No, that came over time, because there are these barriers that are put up for politicians, and I would say women, and especially Black women, to tone ourselves down, not to be our true selves. And so, yes, I have had to, over time, embrace that. And I think that embrace has certainly come with more age and more confidence in oneself. Just getting to a point in your life where you're just not for the foolishness. It's a journey. It's a process to getting that kind of confidence to be, more times than not, authentically who you are in the public space.
If you had the ability to replace Hail to the Chief with any song you wanted, what would it be?
Instead of Hell in the Chief, Let's put the chief on assignment. Let's get him assignment walking through the door. So I would replace Hail to the Chief with Mr. President by LL Cool J.
Dear Mr. President, with all due respect, wish we could have a conversation.
LL is really talking about the type of world that we should create and what presidents should be doing, from immigration to healthcare. I mean, that song was really very much ahead of its time.
How has America changed, and how hasn't it changed since the police killing of George Floyd?
The movement for Black Lives certainly has forced some policy changes all over this country. Laws have been changed, and that's a beautiful thing. They didn't just change them because people with power woke up and said, you know what, I need to fix that. It was changed because of the bubbling up of the grassroots, of the masses, of the activist class getting out there and making the demand. On the other hand, we still have a very long way to go. Far too many Black men and Black women are still being gunned down unarmed. We're nibbling around the edges with some of these policies. We just got to come straight at it. We have to analyze the system of policing and admit that it was never designed to protect and serve the Black community. It was designed to surveil, to hunt people in the Black community, and that has to change. The George Floyd murder reminded me, when I was watching this police officer with just pure hatred in his eyes, at least from my perspective, continue to put his knee on George Floyd's neck. It reminded me of lynching. White people used to gather and bring their kids and take pictures. We got the receipts. The 21st century version of that is what this police officer did to George Floyd. It is a reminder that Black lives are still seen in this country as somehow less than, and it is reflected in policing, and it's also reflected in our politics. It's reflected in education. It's reflected in the wealth gap. We need to fix this in every single system.
Will Medicare for All ever be a reality in the United States, and why isn't it now?
I believe that Medicare for All will absolutely be a reality in the United States of America. The original concept of Medicare was supposed to be Medicare for All before bad politics got in the way. And so we're bumping up against those same bad politics, the insurance industry in particular, who control members of Congress. I call them owner donors. The owner donors are in control, and that's the reason why we don't have it at the moment. But there's an awakening about this, the 21st century awakening about this, and we are going to get it. Not going to happen because a politician got an epiphany or two. It is going to happen because the American people are making a demand. When you have about 87 million people pre-COVID uninsured or underinsured, and since COVID, that number has jumped to almost 100 million people. This pandemic has revealed it is insane to have healthcare, number one, commodified, number two, connected to one's job, because anything can happen at any given moment that is beyond our individual control. So why not join other industrialized nations, being the hegemon nation that we are, and make sure that universal health care is had by all in the United States of America.
If you could have an hour with the senators who voted against a $15 minimum wage, what would you tell them, and where would you take them?
I would ask them to walk a mile in the shoes of people who are among the working poor. The term working and poor should not go together, but it is a concept and it is real in the United States of America. And because they themselves derive their money, their income, their health care from tax dollars of the people, and then at the same time could be as brazen and heartless, because it would have been bad before the pandemic, but especially heartless during the pandemic, to deny a $15 an hour minimum wage increase, which is the floor. It is already the compromised position. It is not the ceiling.
What have you missed the most during the pandemic, and what are you excited to get back to?
I miss the hugs, the handshakes, dapping them up. That's important. The human connection in that way. I mean, there's some science behind the hug. There's one report that I read that talked about if you get 5 hugs a day, you're off to a great start. But it's just something about that embrace that gives you a certain type of energy. And I miss that energy. I got a list of people that I want to hug.